Brahmacharya is a word that grabs the attention of many people in one way or another. It's confusing for those who want to grow spiritually but don't want to leave their normal family life, and repulsive for those who are compulsively involved in sexual activities and cannot think their life without it. All this happens because of the incorrect interpretation of the word Brahmacharya as celibacy. In this episode, we'll explore what Brahmacharya actually is. And is it necessary or sufficient to renounce sexual relationships to become a Brahmachari? Or is it a path everyone can and should adopt if one wants to lead a more conscious life? Brahmacharya is prescribed by Maharshi Patanjali as one of the rules in the code of conduct for a spiritual seeker. The word Brahmachari is a combination of two words. Brahma comes from the word Brahman, the name given to supreme consciousness in Vedanta Darshan. And Achari comes from the word Achar, which means conduct. And so, the meaning of Brahmachari becomes the one whose conduct is towards the supreme consciousness, the one who is progressing on the path of the divine. So essentially, this means that no matter what you do, if it internalizes your consciousness and takes you closer to the source of creation, it is Brahmacharya. I think all of us understand that everyone is seeking happiness in life in his own way, no matter what one does, right? To become a Brahmachari means to become an introvert and seek this happiness inside. Generally, people think an introvert means a shy person. It's because the dictionary says so. But in a spiritual context, an introvert is not the person who doesn't speak much or doesn't socialize. It means the person who is constantly aware of the inner self, even when he is interacting with the world outside. Everyone who doesn't speak with you because of shyness or because of lack of confidence is not an introvert. An introvert can be cracking jokes with you at a party or can be running an empire but still remain aware of the higher self. Let me give a simple example to explain what it means to be seeking outside or inside. Our birthday is an important day for us, and usually we feel happy about it. But do you think if nobody wishes you on your birthday, you will still be in the same happy state? Probably not. For many people, the scale of their happiness depends on how many people wished them in how many different ways. There is nothing wrong with it, but this is one step when our happiness is externalized. Now, with WhatsApp status becoming the trend, many friends and relatives post birthday wishes on their WhatsApp status. Fine till here. But now I see people taking the screenshots of those wishes and then they post them back on their own status. Why? To show 100 more people, hey look, so many friends wished me on my birthday. So essentially, now you are not happy with the wishes also. You become happy when 100 more people will see that you have received those wishes. So now we are one more step ahead in externalization. We are not happy with the fact that we have something. We feel happy when people recognize what we have. Well, I just took it as an example to explain. I'm not trying to say that you should stop using social media or post and receive birthday wishes on it. All I'm trying to say is externalization has no end. If you want to be absolutely happy, be happy within. Internalize yourself. And then you will be on the path of Brahmacharya. Externalization is the reason celibacy is even considered a part of Brahmacharya. Because if you find pleasure in sexual activities, your source of pleasure is someone else. And though it might be a need for most people, it is not something which can give you an absolute experience because it is external. So all of us should strive to become a brahmachari by seeking our happiness inside. Once we turn inside, we will progress towards the divine. Then celibacy or sexual involvement will be a choice, not a compulsion. And very importantly, it is not only about sexual relationships, it's about everything we do compulsively. Celibacy is just one small aspect. The problem is that people pick up just one thing which attracts them and start following it blindly without understanding the bigger context. And the bigger context says that Brahmacharya means to live a life in which you don't act because of compulsions. To understand what compulsion means and how in very subtle ways we all live a life of compulsions other than those which are sexual in nature, let's take another example. When do you go shopping? You must be thinking what a stupid question it is. Of course, when you need to buy something, isn't it? But aren't there times when you just shop because you had nothing better to do or you felt depressed and thought it would be a good booster? In fact, even if this was your need, who decided that need? Do you think this never happened to you, that despite having a full wardrobe, you bought a dress just because every other person is having one and this is in fashion? Did you never decide to go on a vacation because your family persuaded you after seeing the pictures of a friend's trip on social media? Didn't you decide to buy a car you could not afford easily, but it was needed to match your social status? And there are endless examples. You can find yours if you truly introspect. You would be surprised to know how compulsive a life we all lead. Let's admit that to ourselves today. I admit to myself that my life is not free of compulsions. Because unless I admit it, I won't come out of it. Compulsion is a bondage we all are trapped in. And this is what Brahmacharya is all about. To free you from compulsions. You consciously do what you need to, rather than your compulsions deciding what you do. There is one very important thing to understand here. Coming out of compulsion doesn't mean abandonment. It doesn't mean that you have to leave all your accessories. Recently, a chief minister of a state in India refused to buy a new car for himself and continued to use the old one which was in use by the previous chief minister, despite it being the trend that every new CM orders his favorite car as soon as he joins office. I'm sure you would hardly find a politician who would not utilize the comforts given to him. Now the point is, he didn't stop using the car because he knows he needs it to fulfill his responsibilities. But he didn't succumb to the show-off and the power of his position that anybody would fall for. So it's not about abandoning anything. It's about consciously choosing what you need to have to lead this life and fulfill your responsibilities, and leaving that which you are doing as a compulsion. This can be anything from eating, sleeping, shopping, or accumulating things. Rising above your sexual needs is just one small part of it, which some people start following without understanding the deeper meaning of Brahmacharya. And mainly because this is applauded in some communities or group of people. But if one follows it because it is praised or applauded, then he is going against the basic concept of Brahmacharya itself, because he is acting out of the compulsion, this time of his community or belief. Now, does that mean that all those who follow celibacy as a conscious decision to progress on the path of spirituality are not the true brahmacharis? Is celibacy not needed at all? No, that's not the case. But if your doctor asks you to stop eating sweets, he's talking about everything that has sugar content. But you just stopped eating gulab jamun because somebody told you this was the trend, and continue to eat everything else. Will it help you in any way? Most likely not. So those who understand the true brahmacharya as a whole lot of things and adopt celibacy as a helping step are the true brahmacharis. They may not have reached the higher state, but they are progressing. At the same time, if you love gulab jamun and eat it in the right proportion as a conscious decision, this might be better choice for you. There is no point in not eating sweets but constantly keep thinking about them, because in this case, you are not doing it physically, but it has occupied your mental space even more. Then what's the point? And that's why we in India, especially in the Sanatan Dharma, never emphasize that one must leave his family life to become a spiritual. Nor do we deny the power of sannyas. It solely depends at what level your energies are, and that's what decides which is the right path for you. That makes us a truly pluralistic and receptive culture. That's the reason we have multiple paths to yoga itself and multiple gods. Jaki rahi bhavana jaisi, Prabhu Murat dekhi din taisi. You worship what you aspire to become. However, because of multiple communities with their own belief systems we have in India, there are two extremes of thought processes when it comes to sexual relationships. On one side, there are communities which consider sexual relationships as sin. And on the other hand, there are those whose ultimate goal is to have sex with virgins even after they die. They don't want to grow beyond the lowermost animal instinct. That's the biggest problem with people, that they can't take anything for what it is. Relationships are necessary for the universe to function. Otherwise, all forms of life would cease to exist. They can't be sin. Otherwise, the whole universe is nothing but a sin. At the same time, considering it the supreme purpose of life is absolutely ridiculous. This is what an animal can also do, right? In fact, more consciously than a human being. Because an animal involves in the sexual relationship only when it's their time to reproduce. Like humans, they don't commit unspeakable crimes against their females. In fact, humans don't even spare children, infants, and animals as well. So if you consider yourself above animals, your purpose of life or death must be something better. Now, having talked about celibacy being just one small part of Brahmacharya, one question that might still be bothering you, or at least it bothered me for a long time, is that why people talk about celibacy so much and not the other bodily needs which are more basic than having sex. Why don't we talk about abandoning food? After all, that's more basic than having sex, right? Probably the reason behind it is the memories sexual activities bind you with. Thoughts and memories are the biggest hurdles in the path of spirituality, in the path that leads you towards dhyan. It is not difficult to understand that even if you simply try to concentrate on something, thoughts and memories pose the biggest hurdle. Unfortunately, our memory, which should be an asset, is the biggest cause of our suffering. If right now I ask you not to think of your primary school for at least the next few minutes, the image of your school will keep popping up in your mind and will deviate you from focusing on what I am saying. The closer you are associated with anything, the more intense the memory will be. So the real yogis avoid any interaction with people and places which create strong memory impressions in them. As a sexual relationship is probably the one which leaves you with the most intensive emotions and memories, it poses a greater hurdle. Especially when many people in today's world don't mind having multiple partners, they are making an even more complex set of thoughts and memories which they might end up suffering with. Their hurdles will be even bigger. But if forcefully avoiding sexual relationships fills you with even more intense thoughts, then the whole purpose is destroyed. So if you are involved in anything, being fully aware that this is needed because you have a physical body and it has certain needs to be fulfilled, you will do everything what is needed, but not consider it as the core of your life. Because you understand that the physical body is not the whole reality. The needs of the body are like the first few steps of the stairs you are using to reach the top. The point is whether when you stand on these first steps, you are facing downward or upward. If you face downward, you will always remain on that level, or might even come down to lower levels. But if you face upward, which means you know that you have to go higher, there is a possibility that you reach the top. So whatever you do in your life, do it with full consciousness and not because of compulsions. This is the path of Brahmacharya for all of us. The path of the Supreme Consciousness. The path that takes the water of the bucket towards the ocean. In the next episode, we'll talk about the next two rules or yamas, asteya, which means non-stealing, and aparigraha, non-hoarding. If you want to reach out to me to share your opinion about this episode or the whole podcast, or you want to know my thoughts on any specific topic related to yoga, you can write an email to puja.theseeker, that is puja.theseeker@gmail.com. And before you listen to the next episode, please do a small exercise to clean your wardrobe or shoe rack and find out how many clothes or pairs of shoes you have and how many you actually use. Stay tuned and have a nice time.